Welcome back, my friends, to the D-Rate the Hate podcast. I am your host, Wilk Wilkinson, your blue-collar sage, calming outrage and helping to navigate a world divided by fog and those who would spread that fear, outrage, and grievance. Each week, I'm sharing stories from my path and using the power of conversation and collaboration with my many great guests. Together, we chart a course toward understanding, bridging divides, and fostering a community where wisdom prevails over discord. Friends, it really is about bettering the world one attitude at a time. We did not create the hate, but together we can derate the hate. The only good thing about a bad attitude is we have the ability as individuals to change it. For me, it starts with gratitude and personal accountability. I am so incredibly grateful that you have taken the time to join me for another powerful DTH episode. Please remember to subscribe and share the DTH podcast with your network of friends. If you would like to support the show, check out the Support Us page on the D-Rate the Hate website. With that, my friends, let's get to it. In this conversation, I am joined by author Steve W. Wilson to discuss his book, Teetering on a Tightrope, My Bipolar Journey. We discuss the severe mental health crisis in the U.S. today, particularly the challenges faced by those with bipolar disorder. Steve recounts a traumatic childhood experience of being sexually assaulted at a very young age, which he believes may have contributed to his mental health struggles, although he does acknowledge other factors could have been at play. Steve explains the two types of bipolar disorder: bipolar 1, characterized by extreme manic and depressive episodes, and bipolar 2, which involves severe depression. He shares the depth of his own depressive episodes and the difficulties in explaining these feelings to others. He emphasizes the importance of support rather than attempting to fix those suffering from mental health issues. We touch on the broader mental health crisis, noting that mental illness affects around 50 million Americans. Steve criticizes the inadequate support from insurance companies and the government, which often leaves people without the necessary resources and timely help. He mentions his role in facilitating mental health support groups, highlighting their importance for those who are isolated and lonely. Our discussion also addresses the increasing mental health issues among younger generations, attributing some causes to societal pressures, bullying, and the internet. Steve shares heartbreaking stories of young people who felt overwhelmed by these pressures, leading to tragic outcomes and ultimately sometimes suicide. We both underscore the need for kindness and support, recognizing that understanding and compassion can significantly impact those struggling with mental health challenges. Friends, this is a heartfelt and at times emotional episode. Do not miss this conversation and hear a little bit about Steve W. Wilson's own courageous bipolar journey. And with that, here we go. Steve Wilson, thank you for joining me on the D-Rate the Hate podcast. I do appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Will. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so glad to have you, Steve. I'm so glad you reached out because this book of yours and it had really had me thinking, and one of the things that we do have a mental health crisis facing our country today, Steve, and this book, Teetering on a Tightrope, My Bipolar Journey, really stood out to me. So thank you so much for reaching out. I'm looking forward to kind of hearing about your journey, your battle, and what you've been doing to kind of bring awareness, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, so let's get started. Talk to me about long before the book, long before long before you were even diagnosed with bipolar. Where did your journey begin, Steve?
Well, we have to go back a long way. As a 7 or 8 year old, I was just a normal kid. Sports, school, friends, all that kind of stuff, and having a good time. One day when I was 9 years old, I went to the movie theater to see what in those days they played double features, where you'd watch one movie and then they would have a intermission and you'd go up and get pop and stuff like that. And this one Saturday, I went up and went to the Coke machine, and I was standing there, and I went up, and a guy suddenly put a dime in to get my Coke. And I thanked him, and he said, "Can you come here and help me with something in the theater?" So I thought it was a guy who worked there.
Mm-hmm.
So we walked down the hall, and we turn and go into the bathroom.
Mm.
And the next thing he says is, "Take down your pants." And then he proceeded to sexually assault me, rape me. He actually threw me up against the wall when I resisted him and started choking me. And it was the worst day of my life.
I can imagine.
I didn't know why it happened. I didn't know it could happen.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
I kind of went through the thought process of trying to figure it out. And did I bring this on myself? Was it my fault? Whatever. So I decided not to tell anybody, and I didn't tell a single soul for 30 years.
Wow. Wow.
Now, you got to realize something, that there's no proof that actually started my bipolar journey.
Okay.
Probably did. But there's other things that come up in lives that can start bipolar or depression, whatever, genetics, so on and so forth. So what I think is that it just added to what was going to happen anyway.
Sure. And this kind of thing is just absolutely horrific. And first of all, I just, the idea that one human being could do that to another is horrific in and of itself. But then to have that happen to a child, one of the things that bothers me so much about evil is, we can't control where or when evil will, manifest itself. But when it happens to a child, Steve, it's something that it's just beyond the comprehension of most normal people. And to have that thing happen is terrible. So then, yeah, I cannot even, like I said, those kind of things are just beyond comprehension for most right-minded people. But, and then, I'm glad you talk about how, you can't really say for sure whether that started your bipolar journey or not, or if that, if that ended up manifesting itself as bipolar disorder for you. But at what point in your life then, Steve, did you become aware of bipolar, of the fact that you suffer from this bipolar disorder, and maybe for people who don't understand, because I think a lot of people have probably heard people talk about being bipolar, or heard the phrase bipolar disorder, but maybe people don't quite understand what bipolar disorder is. So take me into that real quick. Explain for the DTH listeners that might not know, what is bipolar disorder, Steve?
Well, it's basically, there's two kinds of bipolar. There's bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. Bipolar 1 is when you have a depressive episode, and then all of a sudden you move into the manic phase, and you're out of control. You spend all your money, you ruin your relationships, everything you think in your mind that no one is better than you and you can save the world and all those things. And then you come crashing down into depression again, and you look around and your life is in shambles. Now, the other type of depression 2, or bipolar 2, is what I have. Deep, deep depression. And if someone would come up to me and ask me what it feels like, there's no way they could understand it. It is the worst thinking process you can have. You feel like you're worthless. I went into suicidal ideations. You think nobody loves you. You don't have any feelings for anybody else. But unless you experience it, you have no idea how deadly it is.
Yes, I heard somebody say one time, and I'm trying to place where I heard it. I may have read it, but they said if you have to ask somebody, to describe depression, true depression, that deep dark depression, then you obviously would never understand it. Because it's not something that can truly be explained, right? It's
Right.
It's something so deep, so dark within a person that it just can't be. It can't be explained. It can't be laid out there for people who don't have it. But which kind of leads me to my next question, Steve. So for people that don't fight that battle, how do and I know that this book gives people at least some ways to try and understand it, but what's your suggestion for people who maybe know or encounter or love somebody that fights this battle?
Well, there is one big thing people can do to help people who are suffering, and that's support them. Don't try to save them. Don't try to change them. Support them. Be there when they're down. Be there when they're anything. And that's all you can do. Do not make the mistake of saying, well, you'll get better if you just go take a walk or go to a movie, whatever. That makes things worse. I know my mother and father used to say, how can you feel this way? We've given you everything. You got a lot of money. You got whatever you need. Well, that just made me feel worse.
Sure.
And I would go deeper into depression. So in my mind, it's support, unconditional support that helps the most.
Yeah, and this is where I've got to, I want to make something clear to the DTH listeners, because a lot of people hear me talking about, I've talked often, Steve, about the perpetual victim mentality and people, being able to control their own destiny and if you fake it till you make it and kind of get through it. I just want to make sure that people understand that there is a huge difference between people who choose to be miserable all the time and kind of manifest their own misery through their own ways of thinking, and then people who actually suffer this deep, dark battle of depression and true bipolar disorder, whether it be bipolar 1 or bipolar 2 with the deep, dark depression. There is a big difference, and we need to realize that. But this kind of goes to a larger point in that there is a serious mental health crisis facing our country today, and we are not dealing with it properly, are we, Steve?
No. In fact, there are two very simple answers to what is not helping at all, what is making things worse for the mental health community. And I wanted to say something first. People think, well, there's a few people who are mentally ill. I hate to break the news to everybody, but there's 50 million people in the United States who suffer from mental illness.
50 million.
50 million. There are like 15 million children who suffer from mental illness. And two main things keep people from getting help. That's number one, and by far the worst, is insurance companies. They prevent people from getting affordable coverage. They intentionally created a system where if you're mentally ill, we're not going to give you an assistance to find some good help. The second problem is the U.S. government. They'll tell you that they're doing a lot of things for mental health, but it is far short of what is needed. They have set up across the country in every state. You can get into clinics. They've got people for giving people who can't afford help. They've got psychiatrists and psychologists, and you can get free medication. But the problem is there are so many millions of people suffering, and half of them do not have the resources to get adequate help, that the clinics and things are just overrun. They have very little staff. And so when somebody goes and they're in distress, they may not be able to get an appointment for a couple of weeks or so, but they're in distress and who knows what they'll do.
When minutes count, help is just weeks away, right?
Right.
It's horrible. When we think about those things, and I want to go back to that. When minutes help, or when minutes matter, help is only weeks away, and that's where we're at with so much of this this mental health crisis, because I mean, just the sheer numbers of it. You think about that, 50 million people in the United States alone are suffering from some type of mental illness. And many of those obviously are people who have not been diagnosed or have been misdiagnosed, because there's obviously, different gradations of mental illness and the things that people suffer from, and those things have to be dealt with differently. But our system has really failed so many people on that account, right? Because and this leads to many other things. You talk about the homeless crisis and the the issues with domestic violence, or all these different things are various ways that a lot of these mental health issues have manifested themselves, and it just creates this nightmare, and it's not being dealt with properly.
That is exactly true. Now, one of the great ways to get help is and are support groups, mental health support groups that have sprung up across the country. I facilitate 2 a week.
Okay.
And my sessions are 2 hours long. They consist of anywhere from 10 to 16 or 17 people. And I want to tell you, it is sad, the condition that these people are in. Like me, they may have been raped, they may have been physically beaten, they may have been mentally chopped down by their parents. And most of the people in my groups can't get help.
Right.
And the cycle is just every week they look forward to groups because they're so isolated, they're so lonely, that they use my groups as their social way of living through life.
Mm-hmm.
It is really sad. I'm one of the lucky ones because I found medication and great therapy to get me through. I also had the money to do it.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah, that
made a
makes a
big
big
difference.
difference, right?
Big difference. And these people, it is so sad, so sad. And I mean to tell you that we could help millions of people if we would just make things happen and curtail the insurance companies.
Sure. Yeah, and yeah, the insurance companies have been a big problem. I mean, they were a big problem when it came to, uh, well, not to get real political on this, but obviously the insurance companies played a big part in the Affordable Care Act, and the Affordable Care Act made healthcare anything but affordable. And it's just been it's just been a
Yeah.
considerable nightmare since then. And I'm somebody who has not ever been in, or not been in my recent adult life, have not been in a situation where I wasn't able to be insured. But I do know that my insurance has continuously gotten worse since then, and I don't suffer from mental illness. So thankfully, but when people that really, really need the help of the institutions that are supposed to be there to help those that can't get that help any other place, and then they come up dry, uh, it's so depressing. I mean, that in itself is depressing. So that that builds on this cycle of pain that people are, because they're like, I just need this, or I just need that, and this is what this is supposed to be here for, and it's not there. I'm knocking on the door of an empty room, and I don't know where to go. So Steve, what do you attribute this? Because there's obviously a huge increase in recent years of people suffering from these bouts of mental illness, whether it's chronic, long-term mental illness, or situational, or what. Where do you think this increase is coming from? Because I know in this coming generation, I'm reading a book right now called iGen by Jean Twenge, and she talks about this generation of youngsters right now, that are definitely facing a much larger numbers of people suffering from mental illness. So, what do you attribute these increases in mental illness from, Steve?
Well, I want to say one thing first before I get into that. The problem is worldwide. Uh, Actually, that 50 million people I discussed is 20%, and if you go across the world, um, it's 20% all over the place. So everybody is suffering. Now you ask about the causes. Let me tell you a couple stories. Um, Somewhere about 1980, a friend of mine called me up from college, and we talked quite a bit back then. And he informed me that his son, of about the age of between 13 and 16, had broken into a house and got caught. And the police called my friend and said, come down and pick up your son. And he and his wife drove to the police station. The kid got out of the car and said, Mom and Dad, I love you, but I can't take it anymore. Pulled out a gun and shot himself dead in the head.
Oh my God.
Another story, I owned a clothing store in Ohio in the 80s and 90s. And every Christmas we would hire a couple young people to do errands for us, to wrap packages and so on. And this one year I hired this outstanding girl. She was loving life, happy all the time, smiled, laughed. I had also hired her best friend. And one Saturday morning, her best friend came in crying, and she said, Angie, that was the girl's name, went to bed the night before and shot herself in the head.
Oh, my God.
I began speaking after that because of what I had gone through, and began speaking to high school classes, health classes, and their psychology classes about depression and mental illness in teenagers. And at the end of my talks, I would ask them to come up if anybody wanted to and talk to me about what they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
On this particular day, this girl came up, and she was, as I knew, the number one student. She was a senior, a very good athlete, very attractive. And she says, Mr. Wilson, I can't stand it anymore. I get straight A's. I aced the SAT. But my parents and my friends are killing me because they're telling me, you got to be the best. You got to do everything you can do to be at the top. And she says, I can't take it anymore. They're drowning me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I told her about a child psychologist I knew, and there was nothing more I could do in a center on her way. Right after that, a young lady came up to me, and she was, probably a B or C student, right in the middle, and very nice young lady. And she says, Mr. Wilson, I want to die. I have no friends. My parents hate me. I want to die. And she said the pressure of life is just beating her up. Again, I couldn't do a whole hell of a lot. Sent her on her way, told her what she could do, never saw her again. But those are two of the reasons that this child mental illness is getting around the world and is expanding because of the pressure we put on these kids. There's bullying. There's the internet that you can, I hear these terrible things about somebody getting on the internet and saying things, well, listen, I know this girl, she should kill herself. She's ugly. That just ruins the recipient of this trash.
Right.
So that's
the internet bullying, cyberbullying, as it's called nowadays, and people, like these stories that you talked about. I mean, it's not like this stuff is anything new, right? Bullying is something that I experienced. I experienced as a child. I was bullied incessantly for a number of years, or early in my grade school years, and that's still. I mean, that's something that I've carried with me this whole time, and I get that, that feeling that the kids feel, and they're like, I just can't take this anymore. I don't want to be part of this world anymore, and they feel like they've got no place to turn, and I get that. And then now in this age of cyberbullying, all it takes is one wrong voice at the wrong time, telling a kid, yeah, you should just kill yourself. And it's horrific. It's horrific. I mean, one of the reasons I started this podcast, Steve, was because of that. Well, not because of that specifically, but there were a lot of these keyboard warriors out there that could anonymously say the worst and the ugliest things to people. And they would say those things to me, wishing harm upon me, wishing harm upon my family, telling me, hey, this is garbage. You need to just, the content that you're putting out there, the things that you're doing is just trash. You should be ashamed. You should go kill yourself, that kind of thing. I mean, I would see things like that, and, and thankfully, like I said, once again, and I'll knock on wood, I don't suffer from that kind of mental illness, but there are plenty of people, as we discussed, that do. And it just takes that one voice, that one ugly human being that is, that can anonymously say the worst and most vile things online to a person, and that could actually be the catalyst that tips that person over the edge, and then they take their life. And that is
Well,
so tragic.
absolutely. And there's another problem that we have in our schools, and that is our counselors or teachers. Nobody is trained to handle this. I don't know if you ever saw the series 13 Reasons Why. It's all
I have not.
about a little girl. She's like a sophomore in high school, and she has problems. She's bullied and all these things. She goes to a counselor for help, and he says, "Move on. You just got to live with it." Well, you know from the beginning that she kills herself, and right after that she did. She was reaching out for help and got slammed. And that can happen anytime.
It can happen anytime. You just don't know. And that's the thing is, you know, and that's one of the reasons that I end every show and talk to, say, get out there, be kind to one another, be grateful for everything that you've got, and make each day the day that you want it to be. Because when we interact with other people, we have no way of knowing what storm that person is going through, and at what time they're going through it, or where in that storm that they are at. And we have to try, and in our interactions with other people, try to just really understand that person, you can be the person that person needs in that moment, or you can be the person that trips that mental trigger that sends them in the wrong direction at any moment. So we really just have to, I want to go back to something. I know we're getting close to the end of our time here, Steve, but something you said right in the beginning. We can never truly know how to support or what somebody that's dealing with these kind of mental health issues or these depressive episodes. We can't truly get in their head to understand, but we just have to try and support them. And a lot of that support, from my opinion, in my life experience, Steve, just try to be kind to everybody. Don't treat people as if they are trash, and they. It's one of the things that bothers me the most about society today, and this internet ecosystem of toxicity that we often see, is people are so quick to just be vile and nasty to people that they don't even know.
It's
But you don't know what they're going through.
I tell you, people are not cognizant of the signs that we as mentally ill people give off, such as the mood change, the not wanting to do anything, be lethargic. These kids who play video games all the time and don't do anything else, that's a big sign. Another sign is not playing with your friends anymore. One of the big signs that is out there for people to watch out for became apparent to me when I learned about cutting. And these kids get in such distress that they'll take a razor blade and actually slice themselves. Now, this is not to kill themselves. This is to have a little something go on their brain that cancels out their depression or their bad thoughts, just for an instant. And you can, if you are a friend and you know another friend of yours who's doing that, tell somebody, because they are on the edge.
They are. So the book, Steve, is Teetering on a Tightrope. Go ahead and let's round out our conversation here real quick. Tell the DTH listeners, what are the kinds of things that they're going to find in Teetering on a Tightrope? You obviously discuss your bipolar journey. What are some of the things they'll find in that book? And then tell people how they can get a hold of you.
Well, the main theme of the book is my bipolar journey. I have taken me in the book from just before I got raped, when I got raped, and all through my life until about 5 years ago, I got trauma therapy that really fixed everything. I got to where I was manageable when I got a certain drug in the early 70s and then got progressively better. But the book is best described as a journey that takes my life down every bad thing that happened to me and some good things. When I started writing the book, I had to make a decision. Do I incorporate a lot of good things along with the bad things to kind of even it out so people don't get real distressed and triggered by it? I decided not to, because I realized that even though I had a lot of good things in my life, every time I had a good thing in my life, it was clouded by my thoughts, bad thoughts at the time. So I really never had a lot of great times. So the book is dirty and down and talks about my sexual adventures and everything else. I don't know how well it's doing. One of the main things that I've done because I've written the book is to do about 40 podcasts, some outside the country and most of them all over the country, to get the word out about how strangled this country is and around the world by mental illness. I don't know what reaction I'm having and if it's getting anything told, but that's what I'm trying to do. And the book was the catalyst to that.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's just about getting the story out there that, you just don't know. It's kind of like me with this podcast. You just don't know, what you're going to say or who it's going to reach and what that's going to do for somebody. But if it helps, you just don't know if it's going to be that one thing that one person needed at the right time to really change to change the trajectory of their life. And that's why it's so important that people like you, Steve, get out there, tell your story. You've obviously shown a lot of courage and to just write this book and put it out there. I mean, that's vulnerability. That's showing people that, look, I care enough to share my story with the world in hopes that there's something in here that can change your life and change the world for a better place. So Steve Wilson, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your courage to stand up and talk to me about what happened to you, how your journey has gone, and just really, fearlessly get out there and keep doing what you're doing, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, I thank you for having me, Wilk. I just appreciate being out there and getting the word out and hoping it helps somebody, hoping it opens some eyes in the insurance world and in the U.S. government. They're bad. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, they leave a lot to be desired. So
yeah,
we'll just keep on doing what we do to better the world in which we live, Steve. And that's all we can do, right?
Right.
Friends, if there's anything in this episode that provided exceptional value to you, please make sure to hit that share button. Share it with your friends, share it far and wide. And of course, if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe right from our website so you can get the D-Rate the Hate podcast sent to your email inbox every week. So this is Wilk wrapping up for the week saying get out there, be kind to one another, be grateful for everything that you've got, and remember it's up to you to make each and every day the day that you want it to be. If there is something that you would like to share with me, you can catch me on most social media platforms, or you can email me directly, wilk@wilksworld.com. With that, my friends, I am going to back on out of here, and we will catch you next week. Take care.